Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 1, chapter number 17, text number 23. Atava Deva Mayaya Nunam Gadiragochara Chetaso Vachasaschapi Bhutanamiti Nishchayaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Avai Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thus it is concluded that the Lord's energies are inconceivable. No one can estimate them by mental speculation or by word jugglery. So purport by Srila Prabhupada. A question may be raised as to why a devotee should refrain from identifying an actor. Although he knows definitely that the Lord is the ultimate doer of everything. Knowing the ultimate doer, one should not pose himself as ignorant of the actual performer. To answer this doubt, the reply is that the Lord is also not directly responsible, for everything is done by his deputed Maya Shakti or material energy. The material energy is always provoking doubts about the supreme authority of the Lord. The personality of religion knew perfectly well that nothing can take place without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, and still he was put into doubts by the deluding energy, and thus he refrained from mentioning the Supreme Cause. This doubtfulness was due to the contamination of both Kali and the material energy. The whole atmosphere of the age of Kali is magnified by the deluding energy, and the proportion of measurement is inexplicable. Hare Krishna. So today, we are discussing about a verse where after the personality of religion, that is Dharma, who is in the form of a bull, was actually explaining that how it is not possible to identify who is actually the cause of my suffering, and abstained directly from not identifying who is the cause of my suffering. Right? And Parikshit Maharaj, who himself is another great pure devotee of the Lord, who is perfect in his understanding of the scriptures and the Shastras, was perfectly satisfied with the way the Dharma has nicely explained this particular situation. So now in this particular verse, Parikshit Maharaj is further justifying the statements, not justifying, or rather corroborating to the statements given by the personality of religion, saying that it is concluded that the Lord's energies are inconceivable. Not only Lord, whose position is inconceivable, even his energies is inconceivable. Achintya. We cannot, what is our philosophy is known as Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, right? So it is Achintya, it is inconceivable. So not only Lord's position is inconceivable, but even Lord's energies are also inconceivable. So thus it is concluded that the Lord's energies are inconceivable. No one can estimate them by mental speculation or by word jugglery. So just like people try to understand the scriptures like Gita and all of those things without a guru on their own. I learn Sanskrit, what is so wrong, something wrong about it? If I learn Sanskrit, I can read the scriptures myself and make my own understanding. No, that is not the way. Scriptural understanding has to be followed by, has to be accompanied by the teachings and learnings through Guru. A Siksha is required. Right? It is said by Chanakya in the Niti Shastra that, If a person is having a lot of knowledge, and he is able to defeat a lot of people with his knowledge, like they say, Dik Vijaya Pandit. There are some, in all the directions that Pandita is able to defeat many people. But if that person is not having a master, a spiritual master, his knowledge is considered as a very strong statement I am giving. It is considered as a son of a prostitute. A knowledge which is not received through a bona fide spiritual master, but self-acquired in an ascending process, that knowledge will be considered as a son of prostitute. Why is it so? Why is it so? See, we are dealing with, when we are discussing the Bhagavatam, we are dealing with what? We are not dealing with relative truth. We are dealing with absolute truth. What is relative truth and what is absolute truth? Both are truth only, no, Prabhu? You may say. No. But the word truth has been qualified by the statement absolute and relative. What is the difference between absolute and relative truths? There are two definitions are there, two reasonings are there. We will focus on the first reasoning. A truth which is true in all three things, past, present and future, that is called as absolute truth. But a truth which is true only either in past or present or future or any of the combination, but not all three together, is called as relative truth. So we are dealing with absolute truth. So when we are dealing with absolute truth, will we be able to experience anything in this world which is absolutely true in all the three circumstances? Say for example, we wanted to see something which has happened probably some 10,000 years back. Is it possible to see? Not possible to see. Okay, forget 10,000 years back. When you are born, okay, we go and ask mother, who is the father? Correct, no? We cannot experiment. Okay, who is my father? There are probably, how many billion people are there in this world? Probably some 7 or 8 billion people are there. Probably 50% are men. Okay, and in that 50% probably of the age of father and above, who could be another 25%. I cannot go and check with all 2 billion people whether this person is my father or not. It sounds ridiculous, right? I have to just ask my mother, because this is beyond my conception. Before I came into existence in this world, okay, that particular process of my creation already took place. That of father and mother. Hence, I cannot go and keep on experimenting. The knowledge acquired through ascending process has certain limitation. The limitation is that of our ability to acquire knowledge through our limited senses. When our senses are limited, we cannot see beyond what our senses can tell us. Now suddenly when Surya decides to switch off the light, what will happen? He will not decide anyway. If suddenly he decides so, what will happen? Complete darkness. Our eyes cannot see him. See what see sun, we cannot see next person only. So ours is a conditional existence. Our eyesight, our smell. The dog may be able to smell a mine, land mine which is there. But will I be able to smell? Even though my very existence may get cushioned, I will not be able to smell. I may step on that land mine and kill myself. Right? Because my sensory perceptions is limited. Right? So, but any knowledge now, which is to be true in past, present and future, and cause of all causes, then only is absolute truth. So that truth, if one has to learn, he has to learn through a spiritual master. So now what Prabhupada is saying here now, one cannot estimate Lord's energies, which is inconceivable, by mental speculation or by word jugglery. So this was in 1965 when Srila Prabhupada was in the Jaladuta. He had 2 heart attacks, severe heart attacks. He was on the mission of his spiritual master. He wanted to ensure that the words of his spiritual master are spread across the world. That was the order given to him. He wanted to go there, to the west. But in the meanwhile, he was being defeated by the Maya in terms of, apparently, in terms of, he getting a heart attack 2 times. So in that juncture also, Prabhupada nicely records in this prayer on the board of Jaladuta. In the song titled Markinye Bhagavad Dharma. Tomara ichaya saba hoye maya basha. Tomara ichaya nasha mayara parasha. All living entities have become under the control of the illusory energy by your will, and therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. So, even though Lord's energy is very, very inconceivable, very tough to deal, as Prabhupada is saying in the last sentence of this purport, the whole atmosphere of the age of Kali is magnified by the deluding energy, and the proportion of measurement of delusion is inexplicable. We cannot measure kitna illusion hai. We cannot measure kitna illusion hai. Okay, it is like recently we saw some Titanic submersible. Okay, when it went in deep inside the ocean, it really doesn't matter how many meters above the water is, right? So we are already inside the ocean. You are already deep inside the ocean. It really doesn't matter what is the length and breadth of the illusion. What matters is how to get out of it. Right? So, we will try to understand this process of how do we get out of the influence of the Kāla and the material energy from another purport which Srila Prabhupada had written in November 1977. In November 1977, what was happening to Srila Prabhupada? Anybody would like to guess what was happening to Srila Prabhupada in November 1977? Sorry? He was completely bedridden. So, if you actually see, there is one video in the YouTube also. There's a video of this particular verse, which is there now, 10.13.53. Prabhupada had translated Srimad Bhagavatam up to end of 10th canto, 13th chapter. So this particular verse, when Prabhupada was actually translating, this was recorded by 2 devotees, Yadubara Prabhu and Vishaka Mataji. They are the devotees who are having the service of recording Prabhupada's activities, ISKCON's activities across the world. So Vishaka Mataji was saying that when she was recording this particular verse, this Bhagavatam, she never ever thought that Prabhupada would be leaving this world. And she never thought that this is the particular desire of Krishna. So they were always thinking that Prabhupada would probably recover and he will come back to preach rigorously and things like that. So now let us read this particular purport. We can actually understand, how beautiful is Prabhupada's consciousness when he was giving this particular purport. It is said by the Ayurvedic physicians who were trying to cure Srila Prabhupada. At that point in time, Prabhupada had no flesh in the body. The nerves were touching the bones. If the nerves start touching the bones, it's going to be excruciatingly painful. Okay? So much so that people actually wriggle with pain, unable to maintain consciousness. So generally, even seasoned Ayurvedic practitioners will give chloroform or morphine to avoid pain. But here is Srila Prabhupada, who is perfectly situated in transcendental consciousness, even at that very last moments of his journey to Krishna. So I'll just open this one, 10.13.53. So the verse says like this: Kāla svabhava samskara kama karma gunadibhi swamahi tvasta mahibir murtimadbir upasitaha. Then Lord Brahma saw that Kāla, the time factor, svabhava, one's own nature by association, samskara, reformation, kama, desire, karma, fruitive activity, and the gunas, the three modes of material nature, their own independence being completely subordinate to the potency of the Lord, had all taken forms and were also worshipping those Vishnu Murti. What is the context of this particular verse? The context is Lord Brahma thought, who is this boy Krishna in Vrindavan who is doing all such beautiful things? Maybe some great magician, great yogi, whatever. Let me test the limits of his yogic power, and let me take away all his boys. And he did that. And he just blinked his eyes. Brahma has just blinked his eyes, or less than that. Okay. So in the earthly planet, 1 year passed away. Then he realized, hey, wait, 1 year over, what happened? Let me go and see. When he goes and sees there, what he sees there? All the boys are there. All the cows are there. All the calves are there. He checked whether, where he has stored them, are they there? Also they are there. Then he started counting how many boys are there. And you know what is the calculation capacity of Brahma? In our mouth, when you are talking, how many germs are there? Some millions are there. So probably he creates at every second trillions and trillions of life forms. That is his computational capacity. Brahma's computational capacity. That Brahma was trying to count the number of boys who are with Krishna. He was getting bewildered. He's losing count. How many number of boys and calves are there with Krishna? Okay, he's losing count. So then suddenly all of them start becoming Vishnu Murtis. He realizes what a blunder he has done. He's played with his boss. You can't play with your boss, right? But anyway, he's not boss, he's Supreme Master, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, Narayana, he played with Narayana, we should not do that. So, in that situation he sees, apart from all the Vishnu Murtis, even Kāla, personified Kāla, personified Svabhava, personified Samskara, personified Kama, Dharma and Gunas, all are paying obeisances to Lord Shri Krishna. So let's read on to in the purport. No one but Vishnu has any independence. If we develop consciousness of this fact, then we are in actual Krishna consciousness. See how Prabhupada has put it in a very simple one-line statement, what is Krishna consciousness? No one but Vishnu has any independence. I don't have independence. Nobody in this world has any independence. Even Kāla, who is controlling all the living entities, has any independence. Everybody is dependent on Vishnu. We should always remember that Krishna is the only Supreme Master and that everyone else is his servant. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasa Bhritya. Be one, even Narayana or Lord Shiva, everyone is subordinate to Krishna. Shiva Virinchi Nutam. Even Baladeva is subordinate to Krishna. How do we know? When this Vimohan Leela of Brahma Vimohan Leela was happening, Balaram itself was confused. What's happening? All the Brajavasis who were so loving and caring to Krishna, they stopped loving and caring to Krishna. They are doing so much of care for their own children. So Baladeva himself could not understand. So thus, even Baladeva, who is the personal expansion of the Supreme Lord Krishna, first immediate expansion of Krishna, he is also not independent. So this is a fact. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasa Bhritya Yare Yache Nachaya Se Taiche Kare Nritya. One should understand that no one is independent, for everything is part and parcel of Krishna and is acting and moving by the supreme desire of Krishna. This understanding, this consciousness is Krishna consciousness. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahmarudradi Daivadai Samatveneva Viksheta Sa Pashandi Pavetruvam. A person who considers demigods like Brahma and Shiva to be on an equal level with Narayana must certainly be considered an offender. So, Asamordavaha, his position is like that, Narayana's position. No one can conquer, no one can compare to Narayana or Krishna. Krishna is Narayana and Narayana is also Krishna. For Krishna is the original Narayana. Brahma himself has addressed Krishna as Narayanastvam nahi sarvadehinam. You are also Narayana. Indeed, you are the original Narayana. Now Prabhupada explains next each of the 8 aspects of the Kāla and all of them. Kāla or the time factor has many assistants such as Svabhava, Samskara, Kama, Karma and Guna. Our Kāla is controlling us with these 5 things. What are these 5 things are controlling us? Svabhava, Samskara, Kama, Karma and Guna. Svabhava or one's own nature is formed according to the association of material qualities. Continuously we have been eating nice, passionate food. What will happen? Rajoguna also will be prominently there in us. So our Svabhava will become Rajoguna Svabhava, right? So in that way, formed according to the association, Svabhava is formed out of association of material qualities. Karanam Gunasangosya Sadasat Yonijanmasu. Sat and Asat Svabhava, one's higher or lower nature, is formed by the association with different qualities, namely Sattva-guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Sometimes suddenly we become angry, then afterwards we regret. When you are in angry, that is one kind of Rajoguna. Then after we regret, Tamoguna. Or say, if it is a good regret, they lead into a good action, Sattva-guna. But both, one may be considered fallen position, another may be considered as a higher position. Both of them are under gunas, influence. So we should gradually come to the Sattva-guna so that we may avoid the 2 lower gunas. This can be done if we regularly discuss Srimad Bhagavatam and hear about Krishna's activities. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. All the activities of Krishna described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning even with the pastimes concerning Putana, are transcendental. Therefore, by hearing and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, the Rajoguna and Tamoguna are subdued, so that only Sattva-guna remains. Then Rajoguna and Tamoguna cannot do us any harm. So how do we reduce this influence of the other 2 gunas? By regularly reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, regularly hearing the wonderful qualities of Krishna and his pure devotees. By this time you would have realized this particular verse, which I am talking about, Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, is also there in the same song written by Prabhupada in 1965. You see, very nice correlation. In 1965, what Prabhupada is talking about, he had demonstrated it in the next 12 years. Practical, he has demonstrated. And he is again reiterating it before he is going to leave this world. Next, Varnashrama Dharma, therefore, is essential, for it can bring people to Sattvaguna. Tada rajastamo bhava kamalobhadayasye. So Prabhupada also used to say, Varnashrama Dharma is the one, another 50% of his work which he couldn't complete. Tamoguna and Rajoguna increase lust and greed, which implicate a living entity in such a way that he must exist in this material world in many, many forms. That is very dangerous. One should therefore be brought to Sattvaguna by the establishment of Varnashrama Dharma and should develop the Brahminical qualifications of being very neat and clean, rising early in the morning and seeing Mangalartika and so on. In this way, one should stay in Sattvaguna and then one cannot be influenced by Tamoguna and Rajoguna. So we should hear the Srimad Bhagavatam and also try to implement the Varnashrama system so that we can be constantly above the influence of the Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Tada rajastamo bhava kamalobhadayasya chetayete ranarvrittam sitam sattve prasidati. The opportunity for this purification is the special feature of human life. In human life, that is a special thing, speciality. In lower animals, what they can only think about? Eating, sleeping, defending, mating. You tell dog, see, tomorrow is Ekadasi, you have to fast. It will not fast, it will bark. Right? But humans, if you tell, no, even if a person is not a devotee, if they fast on Ekadasi, you will get so much punya, so much benefit. कर देंगे, उसमें क्या है? Because why? Humans have understanding of Shreyas and Prayas. Short-term benefit versus long-term benefit, and humans have the ability to sacrifice short-term for long-term benefit. Okay? The opportunity for this purification is a special feature of human life. In other lives, this is not possible. Such purification can be achieved very easily by Radha Krishna Bhajana, devotional service rendered to Radha and Krishna, and therefore Narottama Das Thakura sings, Hari Hari Vifale Janma Gainum. This is another song which Prabhupada says is his favorite. Okay. One of his favorite songs, indicating that unless one worships Radha Krishna, one's human form of life is wasted. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asvairagyam. By engagement in the service of Vasudeva, one very quickly renounces material life. So by regularly doing service to Krishna, we will be able to renounce material life. The members of the Krishna consciousness movement, for example, being engaged in Vasudeva Bhakti, very quickly come to the stage of being nice Vaishnavas. So much so that people are surprised that Mlechas and Yavanas are able to come to this stage. This is possible by Vasudeva Bhakti. See, many of the Westerners who are in the prime youth of their life, they stopped going to films, they stopped, going to pubs, given up meat eating, they have given up intoxications, even tea and coffee, getting up early in the morning, taking cold shower bath. In hard winters of New York, during Prabhupada time, the austerities were very, very high. Okay, so they were all doing that. Westerners were doing that. Okay, all that was possible because of Vasudeva Bhakti. But if you do not come to the stage of Sattva-guna in this human life, then as Narottama Das Thakura sings, Hari Hari Vifale Janma Gainu. There is no profit in gaining this human form of life. You are just being like a dog. Sri Veeraraghava Acharya comments that each of the items mentioned in the first half of this verse is a cause for material entanglement. What do you mean by entanglement? What do you mean by entanglement? Our hands, our legs, everything is tied. Whatever we want to do moving, everything is tied up. But tied up by what? Material entanglement. So we are tied up by this material entanglement. By what are these things? 5 things. What are the 5 things? Swabhava, Samskara, Kama, Karma, Guna. So now we'll understand all of this. Okay. Kāla, or the time factor, agitates the modes of material nature, and Swabhava is the result of association with these modes. Actually, Kāla is just only agitating the nature, and because we are associating with that, like say for example, when we are doing japa, suddenly some car is moving, we'll just go. Some modes is moving, you are supposed to focus on Krishna, but then some movement is getting, mind is going towards that, right? It's going on its own, car is going on its own. Why you have to see? But still, we get influenced by that, right? Swabhava is the result of the association with these modes. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakura says, Bhaktasanevas. If one associates with bhaktas, then one's Swabhava or nature will change. Our Krishna consciousness movement is meant to give people good association so that this change may take place. And we actually see that by this method, people all over the world are gradually becoming devotees. See? What Prabhupada wrote in 65, he actually demonstrated it with practically training the devotees. As for samskara or reformation, this is possible by good association. For by good association, one develops good habits and habit becomes second nature. Therefore, Bhaktasanevas. Let people have the chance to live with bhaktas. Then their habits will change. In the human form of life, one has this chance. But as Narottama Das Thakura sings, Hari Hari Vifale Janname Goainum. If one fails to take advantage of this opportunity, one's human life is wasted. We are therefore trying to save human society from degradation and actually elevate people to the higher nature. As for Kama and Karma, desires and activities, if one engages in devotional service, one develops a different nature than if one engages in activities of sense gratification. See, if you are doing devotional service, we will have a different result. If you are doing my own material sense gratification service, there will be a different result will be there. So one develops a different nature than if one engages in activities of sense gratification. And of course, the result is also different. According to the association of different natures, one receives a particular type of body. Karanam gunasangosyasya tadasat yoni janmasu. Therefore, we should always seek good association, the association of devotees. Then our life will be successful. A man is known by his company. If one has the chance to live in the good association of devotees, one is able to cultivate knowledge, and naturally one's character or nature will change for one's eternal benefit. See the wonderful consciousness of Srila Prabhupada. Even though he is wriggling with pain, when he is dealing with Krishna, when he is dealing with, translating the beautiful purports of Srimad Bhagavatam, can we see even one iota of that emotional feeling? When you are hospitalized, when you are having a lot of pain, you would have seen, right, what kind of a depth, and we get down in our emotions, right? We'll go down in our emotions very badly, right? You don't see this at all in the purport, right? How perfectly Prabhupada is explaining the nature of this world. And not only that, for the eternal benefit of the jivas who are going to come forward in the next few years. So this was in November 1977. Just a few months before that, on this very day when we are discussing today's, what is today? Today is July 9th. What happened in July 9th, 1977? Srila Prabhupada gave a institutional direction as to how the process of initiations, first and second initiations, have to be conducted henceforward. See why Prabhupada was taking so much of pain and giving Bhagavatam and all of those things. Because he wants that everybody to benefit from his association. Right? But unfortunately, the devotees, the GBCs, not all, some of them, who were there with Prabhupada, were having their own plans. They are having their own plans. So they were all thinking, such a huge empire, ISKCON. July 9, 1977 is also by Tithi, the day on which ISKCON was incorporated by Srila Prabhupada. It is also the same day on which ISKCON was incorporated by Srila Prabhupada 11 years before. And an year before that, Srila Prabhupada conducted a grand Ratha Yatra in the New York City, in where? In the Manhattan, in the streets of Manhattan. So such popular ISKCON had become, both in terms of popularity and both in terms of resources. But the disciples, led by few of GBCs, could not understand Prabhupada's mood. Okay? Prabhupada, so this was in May 28, 1977. So they come to Srila Prabhupada. The GBCs ask, Satsvarup Maharaj says, then our next question concerns initiations in the future, particularly at that time when you are no longer with us. We want to know how first and second initiation would be conducted. Prabhupada says like this, yes, I shall recommend some of you. After this is settled up, I shall recommend some of you to act as officiating acharyas. Tamal Krishna, is that called Ritvik Acharya? Prabhupada, Ritvik, yes. So in May 28, 1977, a few days before that, Prabhupada declares to the world, the time has come for me to leave this planet. And then he calls all of the GBCs. Okay, so various discussions. So the GBCs, at the time, I believe around 20 GBCs were there. So maybe 20 only, or maybe little more, I'm not too sure. Around 20 GBCs were there. So they have made a list of questions to Prabhupada to understand how the movement has to be propagated in the future. They asked so many questions about the BBT, the book translation, and so many things. So in that way, they also had this question. That then our next question concerns initiations in the future, particularly at the time when you are no longer with us. We want to know how first and second initiation be conducted. So that is a clear context in which Prabhupada had given this letter in July 9th. What did Prabhupada write? So this is a letter dictated by Prabhupada to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Tamal Krishna Maharaj writes to all the GBCs and temple presidents. Dear Maharajas and Prabhus, please accept my humble obeisances at your feet. Recently, when all of the GBC members were with His Divine Grace in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada indicated that soon he would appoint some of his senior disciples to act as Ritvik, the representative of the Acharya, for the purpose of performing initiations, both first initiation and second initiation. His Divine Grace has so far given a list of 11 disciples who will act in that capacity. So there are 11 names. So now what is the thing? Just please see, we are dealing with a time when there were no telephones. The only way people can communicate is through letters. Telephones were there, I'm not denying that, but it was difficult to communicate. It's like, you have to get an STD, means you may have to pay some 100 rupees or whatever. It was so expensive. It is not a technology available immediately, like today, which got liberalized technology, right? So at that time it was very difficult to communicate. So now what happened? Out of the 20 GBCs, 4 people went inside. Satsarup Maharaj, Tamalkrish Maharaj, and Rupanuga Prabhu, and one more person, I forgot. Okay. So totally 4 or 5, I think Kirtananda, I think 4 or 5 people only go inside the Prabhupada's room. Because otherwise all 20 people will go, it will get suffocated, right? Only 4 or 5 went there. So whatever they heard from Prabhupada, they wrote in some minutes book. Okay, after they came out, they had communicated this to the other people, other GBC. So already one kind of a power control started by some people, wherein they started saying that Prabhupada is going to appoint us. But what is the actual transcription of the statement? It is officiating acharyas. Ritvik, yes. So that this audio transcripts came much later. After 79, 80, 81, it came much later, these transcripts came. By that time, damage is already done. So now I'll read on this letter. In the past, temple presidents have written to Srila Prabhupada recommending a particular devotee's initiation. Now that Srila Prabhupada has named these representatives, temple presidents may henceforward send recommendation for first and second initiation to whichever of these 11 representatives are nearest their temple. After considering the recommendation, these representatives may accept the devotee as an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada by giving a spiritual name, or in the case of second initiation, by chanting on the Gayatri thread, just as Srila Prabhupada has done. Very clearly, henceforth, and what the question asked to Prabhupada and what was answer given by Prabhupada, Ritvik system is all clearly matching. The newly initiated disciples, devotees are disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The above 11 senior devotees acting as His representative only. After the temple president receives a letter from these representatives giving the spiritual name or the thread, he can perform the fire yajna in the temple as was being done before. The name of a newly initiated disciple should be sent by the representative who has accepted him or her to Srila Prabhupada to be included in his Divine Grace, the Divine Grace's Initiated Disciples book. So even though this letter was supposed to be sent to all GBCs and temple presidents, this letter was not circulated. Many temple presidents who later on asked the GBCs and all of them, they said that, no, there is a list. There is a list. There is nothing called as letter. Nobody was told there is a letter. This letter was hidden. Okay. Prabhupada is aware what is happening in the institution, what kind of power politics were going on. So, at one point in time, there was this one, the first Indian Prabhupada disciple is Mahamsa Prabhu. He is a very nice devotee. He tried to save the situation at that time, but nothing much could happen. So much politicking. So, Mahamsa Prabhu comes along with one very, very well-known industrialist, learned disciples of Prabhupada. There was this Birla, G.D. Birla, and there was this Sri Narayan, who is a governor of Gujarat. So all such people who came for the Gita Sammelan on November 1st, 1977, on the next day, they go and meet Prabhupada and ask clearly. This is in a Hindi conversation, November 2nd. So when did Prabhupada leave this world? In November 14th, 1977. Even 12 days before, we may say, no, July 9th letter is on July 9th. After that, Prabhupada would have written something. After that, Prabhupada would have given some direction. No, sir. You read this, what I'm going to tell. On the November 2nd, 1977, Prabhupada says like this. So they ask a question. Basically, they're asking, say, the context is like this. Prabhupada ji, we understood there are a lot of politics in your system. The Westerners are not understanding the Indian values and culture and things like that. But we are there. Whoever is your person whom you are going to depute, okay, we will ensure that that person will be considered as the next Acharya. Like that, they come in front. And they say first, all the Westerners, please get out of the room. Only Mahamsa Prabhu was there at that time. Nobody else was there. Okay? All others were told to go out. So when they go out like that, and then they start discussing, so they ask so many questions like, you have done so much, like the way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has done. You have done so much. So how can this can be continued? Prabhupada says, anybody can take up the matter. Anybody can become, go and preach this message. What is wrong? No, anybody can do. See, we can also go and distribute one Bhagavad Gita and say, you are not this body. Right? Everybody can do that thing. But no, there is a specific thing. Okay? How about, I'll read. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ऐसा नहीं बोले है कि व्यक्ति ले ले ताकि चैतन्य महाप्रभु कहते हैं कि सब कोई गुरु हो समझे कि क्या, लेकिन चैतन्य महाप्रभु नहीं समझे. हाँ जी, जियो सब गुरु बनो, बाकी मैं जैसे कह रहा हूँ मन माफी की नहीं. So here Prabhupada is saying, not by one whimsical way one can become guru. Like the way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given the message, it has to be exactly replicated. Then they ask a very specific question. क्योंकि चैतन्य महाप्रभु तो अकेले रहे, आप भी अकेले ही हैं. श्रील प्रभुपाद, अकेले हमारा शक्ति नहीं है ऐसा हमें बताया. तुम लोग आके सहयोग करो ताकि सारा दुनिया में प्रचार हो ये चैतन्य महाप्रभु. लेकिन आप जो कर सके वो कौन कर सका? Even we all can come together. But what you have done, can anybody else do? नहीं, वो आप जैसा. हर एक व्यक्ति का ईश्वर शक्ति देता है. This is a specific question. They are asking, this one of this G.D. Birla is asking, every person is given one shakti. We know that Nama Prachar cannot happen without getting shakti. Right? So then Prabhupada says, हाँ, ईश्वर सबको शक्ति देता है, हम अगर कह दे तो. अगर प्रभुपाद कहते तो तब उसको शक्ति मिलेगा to become a. Even in November 2nd, 77, this has not happened. Prabhupada would have told clearly, okay, this person I have appointed. No. Because Prabhupada is a transcendental Acharya. He wanted his, mission to be promoted for next 10,000 years, and he is available to give his mercy. And thus, there is no need to have any doubt whether Prabhupada is Guru or not. No, he is still the Guru. We are all there, small fellows, doing some small things like distributing one Bhagavad Gita, please read this book, you can become Krishna conscious, and all of those things and all. Other Sadhu and Shastra are there, but Guru, the Diksha Guru, is. So with that I would like to conclude. If anybody has any questions, I am ready. I can take some couple of questions. So we can also understand, see, even though they were very close to Prabhupada, okay, but they did such a blunderous mistake. So that is the nature of Maya. Unfortunately, some GBCs did not know this mistake has happened. But even though they got cheated, their further actions cheated others. Right? See the position of this world, see the position of a leader, see how it will be very difficult. So hence, one has to act continuously with lot of humility. Okay? So, any other questions? We'll stop here. Prabhupada ki jai, Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.